Hey everybody, I keep reading books and not reviewing them, so I made a point of reviewing this one, first one in a while. This is Rogues by Patrick Radden Keefe, who's also the author of Empire of Pain, which I've never read, but you may have heard of that, and it's highly acclaimed, so maybe that alone is a recommendation for you to read this book if you have read it. But Rogues, I actually just picked it up because the back looked interesting, and also it was a buy one get one half price at Foyles, so I got two books for slightly less than I would have otherwise paid. And it's really just stories about rogues, as he calls them. So true stories of drifters, killers, rebels, and crooks. And when I was discussing this book with somebody yesterday, she said it's not the kind of book I'd read. I don't think criminals and killers and rogues and such should be glamorized or written about because what they do is wrong, which gives the wrong impression of the book because the people he writes about, sure, there's an arms dealer in there, but this is an arms dealer, and you just think, oh, terrible arms dealer, awful. But then at the end of the day, is a human being. He does some awful things. He's got a family. The guy writes in a way that really makes you humane. Let's put it like that. One of the people he writes about, I can't remember her name now, somebody Clark, is the US's leading defender of death row inmates. It tells a lot about her childhood, what maybe made her the way she is, and it concentrates a lot on the defence, which is the first case she ever lost, of the kid who placed the bomb at the Boston Marathon. So yeah, some things you read about. It mentions some of the other people she's defended as well. It really made my stomach turn. But this is a style of writing I missed because it's the long article. So when I was in college, when I was in university, say 20 years ago, you could pick up a magazine in the library in between, I don't know, doing other things or just on a break, and you could read an article that was 20, 30 pages long. That style of writing got killed off by the internet in large. It's a lot less common than it used to be. It doesn't sell magazines anymore, so people don't write it anymore. Um, but this is a collection of, this is actually what The Observer has written about this book. In this greatest hits collection, the author of the acclaimed Empire of Pain stops at nothing in pursuit of the truth. Rogues is eminently bingeable, religiously fact-checked, and seductively globe-trotting. One of the other guys he writes about, the final chapter in fact, is Anthony Bourdain, the chef who became very famous for his book and for TV programs, based around eating. One of his TV programs, the guest was Barack Obama. So I'd never heard the guy before reading this book. Another one of the people he talks about, one of my favourite chapters, I can't remember her first name, maybe it was Agnes Hollander, the sister of the guy who kidnapped Freddie Heineken of the Heineken Empire. Their father worked at the Heineken factory, was an alcoholic. The son, I think his name is Willem, he became the country's most notorious gangster. She was a lawyer who defended him, eventually turned him in, and now lives under constant fear of being killed by him. That's a really interesting one, just for the family dynamics. You read about the history, what their father was like, maybe what turned, from a psychological perspective, developmental perspective, what made the brother turn out the way he did. The kidnapping was actually made into a film as well. The Heineken family never asked for the money back either, so they became a famous crime family, so to speak. That's an excellent chapter. The first two chapters are quite interesting because I think most investments are big scams. So the first one talks about a guy what's the name he made up for himself? A guy who made up a name and became the world's leading wine retailer, seller of collectible wines. And it talks about how he sold to one of the Koch brothers, Koch Coke. This is a guy who sold his stock in the Coke company in 1989 for 500 million, began collecting things, famous guns, artwork, wines. And so this guy with the made-up name, Don Still, it may have been, I can't remember now, he claimed to have come across a selection of wines that used to be owned by Thomas Jefferson, who was a big wine collector, a bit of a pisshead, loved boring people. Well, he didn't think he was boring people, loved telling people all about wine. And it seems that every single bottle he ever sold was a fake anyway. And this is just something that the chap Coke has found out, and through other sources that the actual writer researched. Seems like it's all a big scam, just another big scam. I mean, what isn't in the investment and finance world? And then one of the other really interesting. Oh, something I just remembered. One of the delicacies that Anthony Bourdain tried was unwashed warthog rectum in Namibia, I think it was. I remember that because I met somebody from Namibia for the first time in my life that I know about earlier this year. So it's a really good book. It's really well written. I mean, one of the other chapters in there is about Gasser Mozum Al Gasser, who's one of the world's leading arms dealers. I think I mentioned that at the start, didn't I? So let's read some of the things that are written on the back of the book. Los Angeles Chimes. A new book by Keefe means drop everything and close the blinds. You'll be turning pages for hours. Rogues is a collection of Keefe's New Yorker articles about criminals and con artists and more. It's highly entertaining, of course, but what shines through most brightly is Keefe's fascination with what makes us human, even when we're at our most imperfect. That's a really good way. Yeah, I agree with that line completely. What makes us human, even when we're at our most imperfect. Like the bomber that I mentioned earlier. There's parts in there and you think, okay, what he did was absolutely terrible, but kind of seems possible now. Yeah, a lot of people walk around with this kind of delusion that, oh, people who do terrible things, they can't be human. They're monsters, no, they're humans. You know, the whole idea of monsters is like how Hitler used to call the Jews rats, because you can't throw, you know, 1 million people in a gas chamber and kill them. Nobody would stand for that. But actually, they're rats. Yeah, fuck it, kill them. It's the dehumanization. It's like all this bullshit when Hamas carried out their murders, their atrocity earlier this month. So, you know, they come up with the bullshit about, oh, they beheaded 40 babies and all these fucking Western, in the UK, I don't know about the States, media outlets, you know, repeating it on shows, and people like Jackie Collins, the actress, oh, who does that? They're not human. They never fucking did it, you morons. Think. You know, you're running into a country to carry out murders. You're armed. Are you going to round up babies and stop to behead them? Use your fucking brains, right? That was all propaganda, yeah? You know, it's like, oh, but they're these crazy, horrible, inhuman Arab monsters. So if we can push that bullshit, which seems to have been made up by Netanyahu and then repeated gleefully, enthusiastically by, you know, Western politicians and people on TV, it's all been proved wrong now anyway. Who needed to prove that shit? It's like saying there's an elephant who plays piano and does backward somersaults while speaking Spanish. But if you can say that, it's like calling people who were Jewish rats in World War II. You call these people, oh, they behead babies. Okay, fuck it, let's round 2 million of them up and drop bombs on them. Yeah, because they're murderers, they're monsters. Getting off track, but it just, maybe that's why I enjoyed the book so much, because there's part of what's going on in the world now which is just fucked up, which this book, you know, shows that they're all human. So, yeah, I'll repeat that line actually. What shines through most brightly is Keepe's fascination with what makes us human, even when we're at our most imperfect. A very good book. I got a bit carried away there. I have a tendency to do that. And then the Irish Times says, Keefe is a brilliant storyteller, the collection of tales so expertly told. Financial Times, now there's a good paper. Keefe follows his award-winning Empire of Pain with a collection of 12 pen portraits that are no less compelling for being sketched on a smaller canvas. I love that. See, writing long articles is an art form, just like writing short stories is an art form that takes different skills. You've got to put in enough in there to get the person hooked, to keep them reading for a certain amount of time. To really good, this book. I'm just going to go through the people who, oh look, there's more in here. Oh, look at this, Best Books of 2022 by Esquire. In his retelling, these stories become nuanced, complex and impeccably human. Once again, that word human, that's so important. Wall Street Journal, extraordinary. Okay. Oprah Daily, I didn't know there was such a thing. Iconic, Keefe delivers masterpieces. Highly acclaimed, obviously. Really good. And it's like reading a lot of stories about people, but they're true. Yeah, stories that are so entertaining they could have been novellas, but they're true, which is what makes them more fascinating and what makes you just look at the world differently. I think that's one of the things this book has done for me. So, Winning: How Mark Burnett Resurrected Donald Trump, an Icon of American Success. So for anybody who doesn't know, Donald Trump was basically just a sideshow, somebody who'd failed so much to laugh at, you know, a tragically sad, serially bankrupt business failure. And then this guy, Mark Burnett from Dagenham in Essex, used to be in the army, moved to the States, got into producing TV shows, did very well, came up with Survivor, then came up with The Apprentice. Basically, The Apprentice is what made Trump some money again, stopped him from being completely bankrupt. And then he used it as a platform to say, oh, look how great I am, look how rich I am, look how racist I am. I'm not really racist, I just want to make America great again. Became president. So Burnett might be partly responsible for that. Fuck, anybody can become president. Very good book. 10 out of 10? I'm not sure. 8 out of 10 this one. I'm reading another one now, which just made me think, wow, from the first page. But definitely worth reading. Definitely worth reading. I think my favourite chapters are probably the ones about the lawyer who defends the worst of the worst. I think it's actually called The Worst of the Worst. That one had some good quotes in it, like there's a quote by Emerson in there. The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be. Something like that. And then there's the famous one about success is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Lots of good quotes in a good context, well written, very interesting. That's Rogues by Radden Keefe. There you go. 8 out of 10. Read it.